Hello, everyone.
Hey,
Hi, everyone. We'll just give everybody a little bit of time to log in.
Mhm.
Onana, did you get to see any of that hearing on that bill?
Yeah, Mary Alice was the only one to testify. So, and Kathy just noted that there's about 20 minutes left. So she's going to join us late. So maybe by the time we get to the Ledge Committee update, she'll be back and can give us an update.
Okay, I have their screen still up, so it's muted.
Right.
Muted, but I can see them if they come back. So
Sure. Yeah, and I actually think we do have everybody that we're gonna have on this call. So as soon as Mary, Roy, and Don get back in the frame, we can go ahead and get started.
Oh, I gotta hide that Vision Zero.
Oh, no
Give me-
worries.
This is my last project.
No problem.
Oh.
Mike, the way the ceiling fan is above your head, it looks like that you have a top on your head. You know, when we were little kids, we wore those hats with tops.
Like a fan hat.
Yeah.
All right, folks. I think we have everybody. So it's 1:34 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We have 9 council members, so we do have quorum. I'll go ahead and just do introductions so that we, it's a little bit easier that way. My name is Onana Thone. I'm chair of the council. We also have here today Ron Terry, Mary Berger, Tessie Kinnaman, Roy Abe, Robin Kay, Mike Tulang, Mahina Tudor, and Don Heger Nordblom. From the Office of Environmental Quality Control, we have Les Segundo. And here from the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, we have Nancy McPherson and Malia Cox. So they'll be here for the exemptions committee. So thank you everybody for being here, being on time. We do not have meeting minutes to review, and unless we're working on those.
Yeah, I'm trying to juggle that along with other things too.
Okay.
So
We appreciate it, Les. Thank you. All right, and I'm gonna defer item number 3 for right now. That's the OEQC Director's Report. I know Keith Kawaoka is in legislative hearings as well right now. So we'll defer that for now. Hopefully he'll be able to join us later in the meeting. So Ron, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you for the exemption committee update.
Okay, thank you very much. We had a meeting at 11:30 and we had a couple action items on the agenda. And I want to discuss those first before we discuss a few other things. One of them is the second bullet there, and that's the review of an action to approve publication of the DHHL draft list right now so that we can get it out there. We had Malia Cox and Nancy McPherson from DHHL attend the meeting. And they're here again right now. If you folks have any questions, we had some minor, editing things, grammar, punctuation, things like that, that both they caught and we caught. So they're going to clean up the list a little bit, nothing in any way substantive. So the list that was on the agenda will look extremely slightly different from what they want to have actually published. But other than that, it's exactly the same. Our committee did not express any concerns with the list. We voted unanimously to have the list released for public comment. So I guess I want to know if there's any discussion from council members about this. Well, if there isn't any, then I want to give the opportunity to Nancy and Malia if they want to say anything. It's not necessary, but if you want to say anything, give you that chance. Looks like they're going to pass. Everybody's full from lunch, I think. So that's good. I guess, Chair, I imagine you would entertain a motion. We have a motion, and it's a motion because it's a committee report. Do we need a second? We always go over this.
I don't think we do, but we tend to get them just in
We
case.
always get them. So can we get a second?
For discussion?
Thank you. So should I just continue with this, Onan, or it's a council business now,
Mhm.
but you want me to just act in your stead here?
Yep, go ahead and tee it up.
Okay, all right. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, so again, this is a motion to approve publication of the list for the 15-day public comment period. Yeah,
Well,
and I will note that we did actually have one more member of the public join us, David Penn. So, at any time, members of the public, you can go ahead and comment on each of the agenda items. So feel free to do that.
okay, and then I think at this point, we could go ahead and vote, if you're all right.
Yep, so all those in favor of approving the Department of Mine Homelands list for public comment, say aye. You can raise your hand, that helps. All right, that looks like everybody. Are there any opposed? Okay, and any abstentions? All right, so the motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, the other action item involves the Department of Environmental Services. We did not have anybody from DES attend. I think we might have had somebody for a little while, but they were unable to stay on for some reason. So we discussed it anyway. Is there anybody here on the call from the Department of Environmental Services? Okay. The result of our discussion was that this is a list for concurrence by the council, and we were ready to concur with it, but we found that they had missed one of our instructions, which was to put some standard disclaimer language in the beginning, which the other agencies have all done, and they said they were going to do, but apparently they forgot. And so the list is from our perspective was fine, except for that. Let me first figure out if anybody in our council reviewed the list. There were no comments, by the way, no public comments or agency comments. Does anybody on our council have any comments about the Department of Environmental Services list? Okay. Now at this point, we would normally try to take a vote on this, but I don't know if there's any problem, but we don't have their okay that they're going to put that on there. Otherwise, we could conditionally vote for it, but I don't, we haven't heard from them. So I'm not opposed to advancing it to be passed out, but that's a little item of discussion. Nancy, do you have any, I'm sorry, Onauna, do you have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I hope Kathy Hull would be here. I recall in the past that we had conditionally concurred with a list subject to adding that language, but I do believe we did have, at least a representative from the agency there that stated that they would include that language. And just for everybody else's benefit, it's our standard language that notes when exemptions are not appropriate, if there's, cumulative impacts, secondary impacts that are going to be significant, or if it's in a, sensitive area. So that's the language that we're seeking for them to add, upfront, kind of, I don't want to say boilerplate, but the language that we do require every agency to have on their exemption lists.
The reason we want that is because a lot of times these are read by the members of the public. And so they're just starting the exemption list. And if they don't have that in their minds as they're reading the list, they may have really a lot of serious concerns with the exemptions that they see.
Right. So, yeah, I guess. I think we could vote. I can't imagine that the agency wouldn't be willing to put it in. But, I guess we could vote to concur subject to the addition of that language. And if the agency then comes back and says, hey, we're not going to add it, we would bring that back before the council. Does that sound appropriate?
Okay, I wouldn't be comfortable with it except for the fact that they've already agreed to put it in our last meeting. So we've already had agreement with them. It's just an oversight on their part. So I feel like we could do that. I guess it'll be up to me to communicate with them and make sure that that's true.
Right.
And, okay, so yeah, I'm okay with proceeding on that basis, Onauna.
Okay, yeah, unless it is your recommendation that we do hold off until we can get them at the next meeting.
No, I think we can go ahead and do it. So is there any further discussion on this list? Can I ask you to call for the question? Can I call for the question?
Yes.
Whatever.
Go ahead, Ron.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, are there any opposed? All right, any abstentions? All right, so the motion carries and the council has concurred with the City and County of Honolulu Department of Environmental Services list. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We had a few more items on the exemption committee agenda as well. Let me drag it up. It's the only one that deserves our distinguished counsel's attention is we had sent out a letter to everybody in every agency who has to submit the monthly list of exemption notices. And as you will recall, that agencies each month are supposed to send a list of all the Part 2 exemptions they made to OEQC, which is then published. And it's a very, very brief database with the exemption notices on them. So it just tells you where, what, and who, basically. And then it provides a contact number. And this allows public and agencies who might be curious about exemptions to do follow-up. And just a general keeps track of what exemptions are being made. I would estimate that only, prior to our new rules, I would say that agencies were probably exempting less than 2% of their exemptable activities. I think we're up a lot from that. I don't know how high, 20 to 50 would be my guess, but a lot of agencies are still not following through. But this has improved the situation a lot. And but it falls to someone in the agency to do, what is not an inconsiderable task to do every month, keep track of this, send it in, keep it organized, and then be ready to answer questions from the public. So I sent a letter out on December 14th with a reminder in January to let us know how these were going. We asked 8 questions, and I won't read them all verbatim, but just to let you know, how is your agency's consideration of environmental impacts for exempted projects changed? How hard or easy is it for you to do all this? Have you been contacted by members of the public? And how's that gone? Do you have any concerns or suggestions related to the project or related to the requirement? Excuse me. So we had some feedback from agencies. We got 4 different agencies made some kind of comment or other. 3 of them were substantive. And to boil it down, they all thought it's a good process. They believe that it helped their agencies do their work better and was making them more diligent about their assessment of environmental impacts. They didn't find that it was too burdensome to conduct the work. Some of them wanted some additional resources, for example, some more clarification, guidance about what's de minimis and what's not. They found that that might be helpful. There were no suggestions for fixes or anything within the rules or outside the rules. In other words, changing the rules or the law to help them on this. And the fact that only 4 out of, say, 30 responded, I hope is an indication that it really wasn't enough of a problem for them to even think about. We expect to get 1 or 2 more responses as it goes by and comes in. I did want to mention one response that was particularly interesting. It was not written, it was oral. And I received it from an agency person who was not critical of the way things happened with the rule, but saying that it was only as good as the agency that, conducted it. And that this person's agency was doing a very poor job. And they were very concerned about the decline in quality of the analysis of exemptions that are coming out of their agency. They felt that people were untrained and not doing things correctly, knowing they weren't doing things correctly, and proceeding anyway. And it was a person with long experience in Chapter 343, who's been at the agency a while, who is well-trained and is very concerned about how their agency is doing it, and felt concerned about retaliation and didn't want their name used or anything like that. And I'm risking a little bit by even mentioning this right now, but I think it's important, and I felt I had to. I saw that Kathy Ho is on the call now, and I would sort of like to discuss this privately with Kathy at some point, if that seems okay.
That's fine with me. I'm not sure what the issue is, but certainly you can give me a call.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to take care of that. But I think I'll just mention one thing, that they really felt that that during the rules process, one thing that was promised to them was training on how to do this. And this person felt that training of the agency personnel was really critical, and they're not getting it. And the personnel are ignoring the law essentially because there's nobody telling them differently. And I think it's something we need to take care of. We have a decimated OEQC, and it's not able to take care of its obligations, I think, in a way. These are things that were promised by the former director, and those obligations are being unmet. And we have to figure out some way to make it happen.
Yeah, Ron, so, I'm going to ask the question I asked, in committee again, just for the record, whether or not that agency had received, because early on when the rules were published or passed and Scott was still with the office, was this one of the agencies that received training from OEQC? Because OEQC had gone out and done some training.
Yeah, I think I answered affirmatively when you asked it in committee, but upon reflection,
Mhm.
Counselor, I think that what they really did was more consult.
Okay.
So they were consulted and
Mhm.
it was discussed quite a
Okay.
bit.
Right. Thank you. I think it's just important to understand whether or not they had already had training and whether or not they've actually, as an agency, reached out to OEQC to request training. And well, maybe when Keith comes back on, that's something we can talk to him if he's able to join today as
Yeah.
the current acting director. Mhm.
Yeah, to my knowledge, the agency has not reached out for training. Yeah,
All right. Thanks, Ron.
thank you.
All right. Anything else from the exemption committee? No? Okay, and then any members of the public, anything to comment on at this point? All right, well, thank you, Ron, for your update. That was good, and everybody for your review of the exemption lists. Next on the agenda is an annual report committee update. And I'm not on the committee. Unfortunately, Rob and Steph weren't able to join us today, but I did just want to give everybody an update that the annual report was sent out. I believe we got it out, very early February, so just a couple days late this year. So congratulations to everybody. Thank you again, everybody, for your hard work on this, and Robin, really, for getting Lisa and Max involved. So I will be getting a handwritten thank you card out to them. That is on my list of things to do. I will sign on behalf of all of us. So good job on that. To be determined whether or not we have a further requirement to do that in the future. Okay, so we do have Kathy on. I'm not sure of the status of the Finance Committee hearing, and what I can propose to do is to move the Ledge Committee update later, because I know we have, a bill that we're tracking that's being heard now.
Excuse me, Ananda, I'm watching it. They're voting, they're going through the list. So probably within 15 minutes or so, they'll get to 13, 18. So I agree. Let's move the Ledge Committee to later on in the agenda,
Okay,
please.
thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that's a problem. Is everybody else on the council okay with that, just so we can have a full update? Wonderful. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 7 for right now, the Rules Committee update. So I'll hand it over to you, Mahina.
Thanks, Winona. Okay, so the Rules Committee met this morning at 9. We mostly focused on process, given the full council's vote approving us to move forward with amending the rules at our February meeting. So where we're at is kind of dependent on where these bills are at. So assuming the duty, our plan as of right now is assuming the duty of appeals stays with us. Our plan is kind of to draft, do a draft A, B, and C, whether or not these bills do or do not pass. So it's kind of in flux. A few of the things that we're going to focus on for sure is looking at updating the rules to align with our past update to allow for electronic filings. If you can all remember those huge bankers boxes that we all had from the contested case hearing, that was incredibly burdensome for staff. So we're looking at trying to do that for the procedural rules. And one thing that we discussed that we thought we would bring forward to you folks is right now there's a filing fee of $50 to file the appeal, which we thought is kind of low given that, these rules were from the 90s. So we thought about increasing it. So we just wanted to, but while still keeping the process accessible, of course, for the public. So we kind of wanted to open that one up for discussion. And just by way of update before we get into that, before our next April meeting, we're planning on really digging into the rules, depending on what happens with these bills. And then trying to make specific changes and hoping that we can get a law student to help us. So with that, does anybody have thoughts on the filing fee issue?
What is the filing fee supposed to cover? What's the philosophy behind those? I don't really know.
Yeah, so I'll jump in, and if Kathy has anything to add, I know she's listening to the, trying to keep her ear on the bills we're tracking, but
Sorry, I'm trying to, Robin, are you listening to the hearing? Okay, sorry, I was trying to listen to both.
sorry.
I'm sorry, what was the having to do with
Oh, filing fees, what the purpose
filing
of
fees?
filing
Is that what
fees?
you're talking about?
Yeah, you probably know better than I
What
have
was
what I
the-
think it's for, but yeah.
Well, no, I'm not hearing you.
Oh, sorry, I said, I think I have an idea of what I think they're for, but you might be actually able to give us an answer on what filing fees are intended to cover. So
Okay.
the filing fee for the contested case where, it's currently, or for appeals to the council is currently at $50. We're thinking of increasing it just because, it's been some years, and we understand with, the last appeal, staff spent a significant amount of time prepping documents and mailing them and, prepping the record on appeal. So that type of thing.
Right. Yeah, and you also, that's true. You can increase the filing fees, but also, do you have filing fees for the processing, or is there fees for the processing of these EISs?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't find my mute. If you mean by the actual review of the EIS, are you talking about when OEQC uploads them to publish? Because in reviewing the EIS, that's with the different agencies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're right. I've mixed the two of you together in my mind, so you're right. Yeah, I think you only have for the environmental council, you only have that one ability for the filing fees, but that may go away as well, right?
Right. Yeah, so we're proceeding under, kind of our assumption. Well, yeah, like Mahina was saying, we're going to do kind of a draft A, draft B, draft A, assuming the responsibility for appeal stays with the council, and draft B, if it doesn't, because there'll still be some things that need to be amended. So assuming under draft A, assuming, this responsibility stays with us, knowing that a filing fee could never probably cover the exact cost, just is it time to kind of raise it to $100 or $200 in the case of, for staff spending time to receive the documents, prep them, put them in a format that is required, that is easy to use for the council, which we hope can be completely electronic, as Mahina said, and, just cover some of the cost. These costs are going to the general funds is what our understanding is. We don't know that OEQC will ever see it directly. And our intent is not to make it, prohibitively high, but, $50 seems pretty low.
Right.
Yeah, so if anybody has any other thoughts on that, even a particular number, don't think we should do it at all.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
These increases would have to go through the ledge approval, or it's done in-house.
It's through rulemaking, so we'll have to go through the rulemaking process, which we're already planning to do. So in looking, holistically at our rules, HAR 11-201, we wanted to identify other changes aside from the appeals provisions.
Where does the money go in our budget?
It does not come, well, as you folks know, we, the council, have a $0 budget. But, Les was able to confirm that filing fees go to the general fund.
Mhm.
Great.
Hell, get rid of them.
Get rid of the filing fee altogether. This is what the discussion is right now, right? So, yeah, if there's, we won't see a direct, it's not impactful enough, I don't think, to help OEQC's budget. There aren't enough of them. So, maybe this is just something we leave as is, if that's kind of how people are feeling. Yeah, please express your thoughts so that the Rules Committee Chair has a way to proceed with when we start drafting. Okay, so we have one member says leave it as is. Any other thoughts?
This
I
is
just
Mary Ann.
thought-
It seems low to me if it's supposed to pay for some expense, but since it just goes into the general fund, I say 0.
0, okay. All right, Dawn, you had something?
Oh, I was just gonna say, if it was a special fund that it went to and it helped pay for the administrative costs for OEQC, then I'd say there should be some sort of fee. But if it goes to general fund and the money gets sucked out, that's basically like, we're using state resource and it's a minute of time. So I would say probably take it out too.
Okay, thank you.
Is it also supposed to be, that's why I asked the philosophy, is it supposed to be some sort of earnest money in a sense where, if you're serious about it, you'll put down $50.
Right.
Does that go into the thinking?
That
way they have the fees?
I don't know for sure, and maybe if Kathy can chime in. I don't think that fees are they're not supposed to be deterrents, but yeah, I see what you're saying, like an earnest money fee, like you have to be, serious to a certain degree to put that down. So
I would agree with you. I would agree with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe, in that case, maybe having something, $50 is kind of nominal. At least we know it's not. And again, we have a very limited provision, so it's not like anybody can file an appeal, right? It's applicants whose EISs have been rejected. That's who is standing to file an appeal. So presumably they'd be fine with that. Okay, so are we thinking we want to go ahead and just keep it as is, maybe not change this particular provision, or at least the fees? Okay. All right, Mahina, and then I think you can get to the more the meatier process stuff I think we wanted to talk about.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so let's see. Other than that, we had talked about, what the last process looked like and how it would be different because it's a lot more streamlined, limited provisions that we would be dealing with. So we had talked about, what going out for public comment might look like, perhaps just one draft. We'll see. But that's kind of what we're thinking as of now. And we had talked about just going through and basically just taking out any references to Chapter 91 and then tweaking as we go along, for other fixes that we want to make. But that's the meatiest part that we want to work on, I would say. And then what else?
Yeah, if I can just qualify that. So in looking at our rules, we're not going to take out every single reference to Chapter 91. We do need it to be there for declaratory rulings and for rulemaking. Chapter 91 comes in, but we're proposing to take out references to Chapter 91 as as they apply to appeals to the council. You know, as we identified through our more recent process, and this is how I think mostly I feel. I think at the Rules Committee we had some consensus on this, but please, you know, Donna Mahina, speak up if I mischaracterize your opinions on anything. But based on our experience, assuming appeals have to stay with us, you know, doing a Chapter 91 contested case for an appeal is not the preference, right? The statute currently provides that we only have 30 days in which to do an appeal, and doing a full, you know, evidentiary contested case is hard. And so I'm opposed to continuing that. And that's why I like that we're looking at our rules. But we would have to provide some sort of process for it. So what does that process look like? Is what we want to provide to the council. And, you know, something similar to what happened in actuality, I think is doable. It's still very difficult in 30 days. 30 days is not a lot of time, particularly for our board who meets once a month. But doing something where a process that allows folks to submit to the council the EIS document being reviewed and anything reviewed by the agency, and, you know, essentially limiting the record to what the agency reviewed and making its decision, because what we're reviewing is why the agency rejected the EIS, right? So not having evidentiary hearings, I think makes sense, especially in the context of Chapter 343, where really your Chapter 343 document should stand on its own. So that's kind of what we're thinking, but this is, you know, a decision that has to be made by the whole council. If this is kind of what you folks are also having in mind, you know, please tell us. If you have something else in mind, let us know, so that we can at least start drafting rules that look like this process, and we can discuss, you know, okay, does this make sense? So please chime in. Any thoughts?
I would love to participate in this conversation, but having been recused, I really have no comparison. I wish I never got that box of paper, although I've been recycling it for notepads, and it was crazy. So I'll support whatever you guys think would make it much easier. It looks like the bill that deals with that, one of the bills, the one that's moved forward, has just passed, as I sent out a chat. So that, as carefully as I can read it, and I love Kathy's comment on it when we get to the ledge part, looks like they withdrew the appeals process from the revised Environmental Advocacy Council. So this may be moot, but it's such a moving target. I'm really glad you guys are preparing for the fact that it won't happen, and we will still be faced with the necessity of dealing with appeals. So from what I heard you guys grumble about, my preference would be that it be electronic, that there'd be much longer time for us to deal with it, and that we limit the amount of information that we're getting. Those seem to be the three key things that I heard you grumble about. And I mean that positively, you're grumbling.
Definitely. I mean, the inability to have these documents electronically and therefore be able to search electronically was so time consuming. And just, I honestly, the word disrespectful is how I felt about it. I realized I didn't take it personally from that standpoint, but it's just the state disrespecting what they were asking volunteers to do. It's just unreasonable.
Before I was requested to stand down on that, I scanned everything I got, which took, you know, that alone was about an hour. And then did OCR on it, you know, so I could do that. And of course, it's not perfect because all the documents don't come out great, but it helped a lot. But that, you're right. I mean, probably a bunch of us did that and spent, you know, dozens of hours of time on ridiculous things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are great points. And unfortunately, you know, for us, we're not new to the council, but we're relatively new in terms of time, where most of us started in 2017 and we just dived right into the chapter 343 rules, and that was really our focus. And I think we did a really great job in updating those rules to allow for electronic filings and all of the requirements there, requiring that documents be searchable, et cetera. But we didn't at that time have time to look at our procedural rules. So our procedural rules do not match the provisions that we have in HCR 11-200.1. So I think what we would propose is to do something, similar formatting for filings to the council, be done in a similar manner as filings to OEQC, in terms of them being electronic, searchable documents. And, we did ask last in the rules meeting, and unless you can, go ahead and confirm or change your answer here, but he thinks that if we were to continue with appeals, the office could maintain electronic filings in some manner. And I think that would be helpful later, especially since, in any appeals, everything's the filing of the record on appeals electronic now as well. So yes, absolutely. We all had trouble with that, and that's something that we can fairly easily fix through rule making. Go ahead, Robin.
I was going to say it might be helpful to do a cheat sheet for us and in preparation for the public, which was to say, sort of like you did, Onana, for Gabbard and Nicole. That was very helpful. Here's the way. Here are the 5 key challenges that we faced, and here's the 5 ways in which we're going to fix them. So it looks very, very simple, and it's it's really clean. And Mahina, that might be something you could do, I would think, relatively easily. Onana's got a lot of narrative already about that, but just a paragraph of why that was so troublesome, just as we've said now, with the quick fix that we're recommending. So it's a non-lawyer's perspective, I think. Is that making any sense?
So like a rationale document?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, well said.
Yeah, I think we certainly have some experience with that, which we'll plan to do for this as well. Okay, for the folks and even the folks who didn't get a chance to participate, I think you can, you folks all have experience in one way or another with contested case proceedings, agency hearings. So just, if you can imagine what the challenges would be, and I guess essentially a new process that we're proposing, please provide feedback if you folks, what we want to ask the council from the rules committee today is just, are you comfortable with us kind of proceeding with beginning to draft, essentially what would be, it wouldn't be a contested case hearing pursuant to Chapter 91 process, but it would still be a process that allows for our review in line with the level of review we think is warranted, based on the spirit and intent of Chapter 343 and, what we're capable, what we're allowed to do. I know, Robin, you mentioned adding more time. Now, assuming these bills don't get passed, I think we're stuck with that 30-day time limit. So that really drives the type of process that we can have. Mm-hmm. Okay. Go ahead, Roy.
I think the original drafters set it at 30 days, intending that this process not be complicated and detailed. So if you start extending it, then maybe changing the intent of what they thought they would, want us to do.
That's a good point, Roy. So I'm just making some notes. That was a good point. All right, was there anybody else who had anything to add? Okay, Mahina, anything else from the Rules Committee?
Not much. That was very helpful. Just to say that we also collectively decided to, come up with these contingency plans, but not really get into the real action of it until after the legislative session is POW. And yeah, that's it for now. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mahina. So just to recap, Is everybody in this group comfortable then that, the Rules Committee proceeds with essentially drafting, 2, possibly 3 formats of the rules, depending on the outcome of the legislative session? All right. Do we need a formal vote on this, Kathy? And actually, we don't have an action item on the agenda, so. Okay, so we'll not do that. Thank you very much, Mahina. Okay, so I'm going to now go back to agenda item number 6, which is the legislative committee update. So I will hand it over to you, Robin.
Okay, thank you. This has been quite the ride. A couple of things. First of all, there are basically 2 bills, only one of which is moved forward that directly impact us. And it's the one that had a hearing today, House Bill 1318. And that moves us to the Office of Planning and changes us to the Environmental Advocacy Council. And it eliminates the appeal, makes a couple of other changes that we'd requested, but more than we'd requested. The bill that Senator Gabbard had introduced hasn't moved much further, and that's the one that was just the 3 specific things we'd asked. So there are 2 bills that have moved along from that list that I've sent you before. One is 1318, and as I said, that passed today. It passed with only 1 yes with reservations. All the rest, and that was Representative McDermott. All the rest voted yes. The other bill that's got a hearing that impacts us directly is House Bill 901, and that has a hearing tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And that's the bill that amends the environmental impact statement law to delete reference to discretionary permits and allowing infrastructure improvements within a highway or public right-of-way to be exempt from environmental assessments. So that's tomorrow. All the rest of the bills that we're tracking have either died, as far as I can tell from my limited knowledge of the legislative process, or have transmogrified into another bill. One bill that I thought was really interesting was the Environmental Impact Statement Hub that came up last year, and that required some changes in the website, and we testified in that. And that bill, which was House Bill 842, switched to last year's bill, HB 2624, which is in the from the 2020 ledge, so it doesn't come up on the 21 legislative information site. So I'm not sure what's going on with that one, but otherwise, pretty much everything else that had direct impact on us that I could see hasn't moved forward. That makes sense? Is that helpful to you at all? So
Robin,
did you
that's just a gut and replace. It happens all the time.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that they replaced it with last year's bill.
Mhm.
I hadn't seen that before, but
Yeah, I recall, because I did testify on that bill, and I know at the end of it, decision making, they said they were going to go back to last year's version because, as we had testified on behalf of the council, there were some errors in the bill. One of which noted that the council accepts EAs and EISs, right? And so what they had done in 2020 was they corrected that type of language, which we had previously testified on. So if I heard the committee correct, EEP at the end of that hearing, they were going to go back because they had already amended, this exact same bill. But I don't know if there were other changes. I hadn't been able to follow it.
okay. And Gabbard's bill, Senate Bill 351 is referred to its second committee, but it hasn't had scheduled a hearing. So I don't know if the timeline is such that that means it's dead. I continue to track it. Mary, maybe you know what that means, but
It needs to be heard by Friday.
by Friday.
Second
Okay.
committee.
So that would mean they'd have to schedule it in the next day or so. For
Thursday night.
Fridays. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. So I'll keep my eyes on that. Like I
Thank
said,
you.
everything else seems to be dead.
Mhm.
Any questions, anybody?
Yeah, I have I guess for HB 1318. So now that it's passed finance, which was its second committee, what's the process for those of us who who aren't as familiar with the legislative process. And really, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, what's the chance of this, becoming law this year?
So it's gonna cross over.
It
Right.
is going to cross
Yeah,
over.
it's finished its last, this was its last committee in the House. So this bill will be assured to cross over into the Senate.
Does it need a vote in the House before it crosses over, Kathy?
It had its vote.
No, not by the full House.
Yeah, that's a,
It's
Mary,
my
do you know the answer
understanding
to
that,
It'll just be part of a whole group of the days of, like, I forget what they call it, the order of the day or whatever, and it'll just get voted on. Nothing ever gets killed there.
Yeah.
So if we want this, we want changes, or we want this to die, we need to get Senator Gabbard to do the killing.
but I think it needs some vote before it crosses over. So,
I
but
think
like
you're
you're saying,
It doesn't matter though.
right. Okay,
So, I mean, there'll be an official, shuffling of papers, but it's a done deal. It's crossing.
maybe what I should do, Anana, is with your approval, is contact Rock Briggs at Gabbard's office to find out what they're thinking about 351, their bill, or are they going to accept Rep. Lowen's bill 1318 as the way to get at what we'd asked them for?
Yeah, I think that would be fine, Robin, to keep that line of communication open.
Okay. I'll send an email to Rock as soon as our meeting is done and see if we can get some information. So that's as much as I know.
It's interesting to me that Senator Rhodes didn't have a hearing on this. So,
On which one?
on 351.
Oh, yeah. Not yet.
Gabbard held a hearing. It's his bill, and it would be customary for him to say, "Hey, Carl, hear my bill."
Yeah, and maybe he's gonna allow Lowen's bill to be the bill that does this. I don't know. I'll try and find out. I'll ask. But I don't want to take up more of your time. I know there's a lot of stuff on the agenda. Anything else on the legislative committee report?
Kathy, anything else to add?
Nope, I have nothing else to add.
All right. Well, thank you folks for tracking that and listening into those hearings and keeping us apprised of everything going on with Ledge. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over now to Mary for the information and outreach update. Oh, sorry, Mary.
See, Ron, you brought food for Mary to eat, but not for the rest of us. That's just so unfair.
Sorry, it was my oatmeal cookie. Okay, well, I know. We were thinking we were going to start, we were trying to have our first forum this month in mid-March. But when we started reaching out to people to speak, so many of them were like, yeah, sure, we'll do it, except for the legislative calendar. And so we decided, okay, let's not fight with the legislative calendar, and we'll just push all of our forums to start in June. So that's why you see the list before you. We have 2 action items today. We'd like the full council to approve the list of topics that we're going to work on. And this list of topics, as I mentioned in our last meeting, came from our annual report and the questions that we asked the various agencies. And these were the items that the various agencies saw that we needed to do more work on as a state. And so it seemed to be logical then, if that's what, since part of our task is to, let the state know where we are environmentally, then we should be having forums on those subjects as well. And so that's where those 6 subjects came from. And I so move. Ron, say second.
Who?
I'm just teasing.
yeah.
Ron,
Okay.
I seconded his motion, so.
Oh, yeah. I was like, we don't need one, but if anybody does want a second.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion on this agenda item? And so as Mary noted, right, the topics that INO wants to present in future forums are listed on the agenda. We have 6 here.
They look great.
Yes, very comprehensive. No? Okay. And any comments from members of the public? And again, I say again, you know, we're moving through things quickly, but if at any point you do have a comment on an agenda item, please feel free to speak up. Okay, so I think we can go ahead and call the question. The motion is to approve the Information and Outreach Committee to present this, you know, forums related to the 6 topics that are on the agenda. All those in favor? Say aye. Okay, so we have just 8 of us. Mike stepped out. Are there any opposed? Do we have any abstentions? Okay, thank you, folks. Yep.
Thank you,
it
Madam
carries
Chair.
with 8.
Our second action item is the proposed dates for these forums. We did put them on the calendar, and the people, we've been contacting speakers to present at these various forums, and we've given them these dates so that, you know, they know what they're saying yes or no to roughly. What we're planning to do is to have, we would have the forum around lunchtime, and then we would repeat it again after traditional working hours in the early evening. So and you'll note there's only 5 dates there while we have 6 topics. Because we had calendared this all the way through December, we thought it was prudent to stop at that point. And we'll always learn something as these forums are being produced. We may find that we're better at this than we think, and we can have more than 1 a month. We may find that we're really lousy at it and we need to slow down a little bit. So we just decided to stop calendaring at the December point as an arbitrary cutoff time. Get to the remaining topics as they, you know, as time allowed. And I suppose.
All right. So that's your motion, is to approve, and it, as written here, there are approximate dates. These dates might slide. Is that correct? Depending on availability.
Availability of presenters.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion to approve. There are 5 dates listed beginning in mid-June through December of this year. All those in favor of approving those approximate dates? Okay, do have all 9. Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, so the motion carries.
And if I could just say one more thing for the INO, I really want to thank this hardworking committee. We've got a good committee. People using their own connections within their industry and other people that they've crossed paths with. We've got a nice synergy going, and I really enjoy working with them. Thank you for all your work, everybody.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you to the committee.
You didn't say that about our committee, Mary. I mean,
I'm
great.
not the chair of that committee.
All right, folks. So I'm going to turn it over and back to Robin, actually, for the strategic planning permitted interaction group update.
Yeah, it's been a great committee. Everybody's worked really hard. It's just, except for Mary. Otherwise, it's no. Okay, strategic planning. A couple of things very briefly. We've had several meetings of the PIG, and we agreed that given what's going on in the legislature in relation to us, we really will only ask 1 question rather than 2. The second question was going to be, what home did you think would be appropriate for EC, OEQC? And at this point, it just seems to be A, unrealistic question, and B, many of the people we would ask that question they might not have any idea. So we're going to stick with the first question. The survey folks have agreed to do this whenever we give them the go-ahead. The only thing I'm holding off, the only reason I'm holding off is that Les had a little bit of administrative challenge in finishing the distribution list. So I wanted to ask you how that stands now, Les. Have you been able to complete the list, or are you closer?
I'm still struggling with it because I don't have email addresses. So I have to go to the web and I have to try to find contacts and try to find phone numbers to contact these people to get the necessary email information. And that's been a challenge for me because I'm also doing other things too. So, trying to get the minutes done from past meetings, also trying to, answer questions from the general public. So I'll try my best. The one that I'm having the problem, the only list I'm working with right now that's giving me problems is Roy's listing of planning survey participants. And a lot of these people, I don't know how to get in touch with them.
Yeah, I had intended to provide the emails. I didn't know you were tasked to do that, so.
Well, somebody has to do it.
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay, so that'd be great. So if Roy can finish up that list, then you've got the rest of it, because Dawn had her emails.
Yeah,
mine
I
had-
already have the rest of the list, but
So it's just Roy. Okay, well, Roy's willing to do that. He's already
Yeah.
said that. So Roy, if you could move that up on your to-do list and
Okay.
let us know.
Okay.
Just give me a heads up when you think you've got it close enough, and then I'll get this, because it's a one-question survey. It's not going to be difficult.
Okay.
for them to do it.
okay.
And then we'll get going for that. So that's pretty much where the pig is now. So thank you, everybody. Great committee work. And thank you very much for being so responsive to questions and meeting dates.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, folks, for getting that ready. And Les, thank you. We know you're working on a lot, so thanks for assisting with that. And yeah, Roy, getting those emails to Les, that'll help him out a lot. So we appreciate that.
Thank
All
you.
right. Yeah, thank you, folks. Okay, so that's it from the pig, Robin. Okay. All right, I'll our next meeting we have Tuesday, April 6th. I think from what I heard so far from folks, we will have rules meeting, exemption committee, ledge, we'll meet. Yes, okay. INO, are you folks planning to meet for April?
I
Okay,
think most likely we will, yes.
okay, INO, and then am I missing anybody? I think that's it, right? Those are the big ones. Yeah, annual report doesn't need to meet. So, okay, so we'll go ahead and make sure we get agendas out for everybody so that they can meet. Thank you folks for working with us on that. I do want to open it up for public forum. We do have a couple members of the public who are here. Just check to see if there is anything else that, any other announcements. Okay, doesn't seem like it. So, before I close the meeting, Kathy, I want to check on what the appropriate way is to do this. Something came up yesterday. So I would like to make, and our agenda was already out, so I would like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss that item. Or Kathy, is that appropriate?
Right, it is
Yes.
appropriate. We need a 2/3 vote. to-
Okay, to do that. Okay, do I also need a second?
Yes,
I'll second it.
Robin, okay.
Yeah.
And then before we close out on that, so will we come back into our regular meeting, or do I close out the regular? We're still in our regular meeting, right?
yes, you would close out, we would go into executive session and then come back to the public forum and then close
Okay.
out.
Okay, so
I can do a breakout, so you can, the meeting will still continue, but you'll be in a separate room, private room.
yes,
Yes,
if we can please do that. And then Les, are there any security issues with how the meetings get recorded? Because executive session should be confidential, right?
right.
Should be, yeah. Yeah, I don't think it records. I don't think the breakout session is recorded, but
Okay. All right, well, we'll just check on that when it happens. So we do have a motion to go in executive session, and sorry, who seconded that again? Was it Robin? Okay. All right, and all those in favor of going into executive session, say aye. Okay, we have 8 of us. Mike stepped out again. Are there any opposed?
I have a question though, Manana.
Yes.
Because of the nature of this conversation, and I'm glad you brought it up because it was pretty confusing to me.
Mhm.
Do I participate in this executive session, or I can?
Yeah, everybody should participate.
Okay.
Okay, so we did have 8 of our 9 members vote to approve the executive session. So Les, you can go ahead and move us into a
okay.
breakout.
Give me a
Thank you.
minute. Yeah.
Okay,
Mike, you need to stay put because we're going to have executive session and we need you to be part of it, please.
Hey, you guys are, should be in,
Yeah,
Mike,
so
go to the breakout
yeah,
room.
you have to join.
There we are. Mike never left. He's still sitting in the.
Looks like we're missing.
Although I,
Oh, there he is, Roy. Okay, are we missing anybody else?
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay,
I
Roy.
hit the button, but I guess it didn't go through.
Is David still waiting for us?
Yeah, I think he is. I don't know if maybe he's just
I
listening
don't,
to the meeting. And Mike.
I don't see Mike.
All right, folks. So we covered everything on our agenda except for the OEQC director's report. And sorry, I'll note for the record, it's 3:13 p.m. and we just returned from executive session. We're back into our regular session. And as I was saying, I know Keith had a meeting at 2. I don't know if he tried to join while we were in executive session. Les, do you happen to know?
No, I don't. I can, let me check with Jen to see.
Okay, yeah, just real quick, just in case he was trying, we have, a few minutes left.
Dawn, how come your living room is so perfectly neat and symmetrical and it's amazing. How do you keep your house like that?
It's a screensaver.
Uh,
I have a cat tower behind me, so this is much nicer.
Oh, no, Keith, Jen said that Keith didn't call. or
Okay,
anything.
yeah,
Yeah,
he must still be stuck in meetings, so
yeah.
we'll go ahead and, we had to defer the OEQC director's report this time. Unfortunately, we couldn't get that since Keith wasn't able to join, but, just one last call, public forum, if there's any announcements or anything, or any comments from the members of the public. Okay, doesn't look like it. Thank you, everybody. We had a really full agenda today. Our next meeting is Tuesday, April 6th. We'll see you folks then. And I'll go ahead and close the meeting at 3:14 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Les.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Nana.
Thanks. Bye.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.